Alright, welcome to the tutorial on creating a cupcake. Now I found an image online of a cupcake and I pasted it in. Obviously it has a watermark, it's not something I'm going to be able to use, it's also not my own design. So I wanted to just start breaking down how to think about a three-dimensional object in two-dimension. So I kind of wanted to show you the starting points of creating the actual dimension and how layers become really important for this. As you can see I have my cupcake. And what I'm going to do is lock the cupcake layer so that it doesn't end up moving. Then what I did is I traced the entire cupcake base. Now, you're not going to want to start tracing it as it is for you. You want to think about how far it actually goes out. So when I was tracing it, I used my pen tool, and I just kind of clicked at the bottom, went to the other side, held it to do the arc, When I was happy with the curve, held the Alt key to release the curve, back up, and then I went all the way back to the other side and did what that cupcake would look like as far as it possibly could go. So you get that whole three-dimensional shape of your cupcake. You want it to be that larger shape when you're building your cupcake. Ignore those layers right there. Because you're going to actually start piling on top of and in front of to create the layers and the depth. So I know that we cannot see here the cupcake anymore. Oops, it's this one right here. We've lost the front, but that's okay. What we're going to do is from that front piece, and I'll just actually end up using that one instead, I'm going to move it over. I'm going to start putting my layers on top. So when I have that front piece, I know that I need the top of my cupcake piece, which what I did is you want that cupcake to be the very bottom, and you're going to start putting the one color shadow on top and the other color shadow behind it to actually start creating the depth to your cupcake. So if I can see kind of here, I have the tops of my cupcake. And slowly, it will start hiding the other side of that cupcake, especially once you put the icing on top. And so what I did was to create these two circles, which if you use the center align tool at the top, when everything's selected, you can align it so it's straight. All I did to get these two pieces was I traced one. So I went back to my muffin, grabbed the pen tool, and when I'm tracing circles or ovals, I'd click it like it's a four corners to it almost, because it's going to create the best full shape. So it's like you're clicking it every 15 minutes almost, and that creates kind of the most secure shape, I find. Because you can go slowly around to really work on that curve and the depth of it until you're content. Back to the beginning. So what I did is when I had this shape finalized, all I did was bring it over to the top of my muffin. I'm going to hide all these, and place it at the top. So again, you have your muffin, you have your cupcake base. Hold Shift to select both, and then align them so they're centered. Then all I did was I duplicated it. So I copied and pasted it till I had two. Right? And so what I can do now is I can have my dark layered one at the base, and I make sure that layers the second item on the layer panel. And then I'm going to take this other cupcake piece and kind of just put it so that you still get the edge of the other one, but then I can go to my color guide and pick a lighter color and change it. So if I go over here and then click color guide, it will give me a gradient of that color that's already in there. So if you're color selected and then go color guide, which if you don't see it here, you go window, color guide, it'll actually give you the next color down in the shading so you can actually see it applied. So now you can tell that my layers are wonky because it's hiding it, so I'm just going to organize my layers. There you go. So you have the lighter to the darker on top. If you want to change the tone, you can change the tone as well. It starts building the depth to your cupcake. Now I'm aware that you still don't have the front edge to your cupcake. And that's completely fine. What you're going to do is when you're content with the placement of both of these, so that's where I want it to be, and my icing is going to hide the back of the cupcake, so that's fine. I'm going to grab my pen tool, I'm going to turn the fill off, and then I'm going to have the outline color. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to make a bunch of triangles. Now the triangle starts the base of the cupcake and goes over the top of the cupcake, and then again down the base, up the top. And it starts creating the shape that goes up to where my cupcake is, and then back down, right? And it starts creating your edges. Then what you'll do is you'll make lines going straight down, one for the light side of the shadow, one for the dark side. Now I know that it looks a little bit silly because my stroke is set to a really fine line. But when you start changing it to make the stroke a thicker line color, you'll actually fill in the overlap. So then once you're done this, you go to the stroke, change the size. Then you're able to create a lines down for each of the rivets on your cupcake. Okay, so let's just say there's my line. Now I can select the pen tool, the selection cursor, and if I select the line, my tools at the top change. I can change the size and weighting of the stroke to get actually the turns. And if I need to move anything because maybe it didn't really look the exact way I want it to look, you can neaten it up. You don't have to be stuck with what was exact there. So if you want to cover it up or it didn't really cover the hole as much as you want, you can move things according to it. Again, same deal. If I select the color and then go to my color guides, it will give me gradients of that color to make sure that I'm getting a lighter color than the actual cupcake top. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the rivets down. So I know that on one side I need a line that's dark and one side light. And you're going to fill that in based on your actual lines here. So the first side, you're going to use the line tool, top to the bottom. Have the fill off. Select the stroke. Grab your cursor. Grab the line. And then again, I just need to make sure that my layers are in order. I can change the size of my line. I can change the color of my line. And in this case, I'm going to want it to be a darker color. So I'm going to go to my color guides and go for a darker gradient color. And then the next line that's going to go down has to be the light color. So I'm going to alternate between which ones are darker and lighter from that color. So I know I want to stick kind of to the same color family. And then we'll start creating that rivet. And again, at the end, just make sure that line goes to the top of it, and it will hide any messy edges. And then again, from the next one, I'm going to go, so that one's going to be light, this one will be dark. So again, I'm going to take the pen tool from the side of the dark one, back to the bottom of my line tool again, and apply it. If I need to change the size of the line, because the rivet itself was bigger, again, you just go to your stroke, change the size of the line for where it applies. And you'll start getting the depth of the actual cupcake. Again, you know that's light, that's dark, that's light, that's dark, and it will start creating this depth for you of the actual cupcakes when you start filling it all the way along. For the icing, what you're going to do is trace out one of the dollops here. You can start with any dollop that you'd like. I'm just going to do the one at the edge because that works easiest. Create the curve. Go back to the top, so Alt it. And then it doesn't matter if it goes over like this, because what you're going to do next is actually put the neck shape on top of it. So you're just going to pick your shape. I'm going to use a shape from the actual ice cream here, the actual icing here, and I can move it over to my cupcake. Now obviously there's no color gradient added to it. You have a couple options here. You could choose to color out different shapes and actually then retrace the lighter color and put that on top. Or you can put a gradient directly on top, and that's completely up to you. I personally would go back here and trace both the color sizes so that you get both of the pieces. You're going to get the light piece and the dark piece. And when you click Alt and you don't click rightly on the anchor point, your computer will get mad at you. So make sure you're clicking right on the anchor point, and then you're creating that. What you can do now is, again, put that on top of your cupcake. But now if you go to your color guide, it will give you the exact lighter family gradient, so you can change the color. Just make sure it's changing in the fill versus the outside. You'll get those two colors. Now again, let me show you the other option based on the next piece. Then you trace the larger piece. And again, I'm going to start at the bottom, go to the top there, create my crazy curve, which I don't think will work best this way, so I'm going to do it in corners again. Four corner is the best breakdown for larger curves and shapes. Alt. Alt. And again, this part here does not matter. So it doesn't matter the actual shape you're given here. Because what you're going to do is you're going to turn the outside line off. You're going to eyedrop the color you originally had. And you're literally going to put it on top of the cupcake that it doesn't realize the overlap it's creating. So you don't realize and see the overlap so much. Okay? Now, to get that edges and the gradients, this is what I'm going to talk about now. So I'm going to kind of put this cupcake down here and go to my gradient panel. So window, gradient, it's open, window, gradient, and it will open up this lovely gradient here. Obviously I want brown in my gradient, so I'm going to click the gradient panel so it's selected, but now I want to have my color. So I know I'm going to need to have brown. So I will use my CMYK colors, locate a brown color, and know I want that to be in the gradient. I also know that it's going to have a lighter hue in the center of the gradient. And then I'm going to double click that square to find, again, my CMYK colors, go back to the browns, but have a lighter brown that goes in the center. There we go. And then I want my darker one again, so I'm going to go back to the end of the gradient and use that darker color again so it fades into the darkness. And this is where you'll start getting the depth to your icing. You have the option too, if you want to have a stroke, to have a fine black line, brown line stroke around your image. That's an option as well if you want to have that shape around the outside, but definitely not required. Now what's cool is obviously you could do radial, and it creates that depth, but what you really want to focus on is the actual direction of the icing. If your icing is going sideways, you're going to want the linear line to change the angle. If your icing is going up and down again, you want that to change too. So you can change the degree of your line from being 0 to 90. What it does is it turns it either way up and down. And that's how you can really get some depth to the icing. Imagine you had a bunch of these on top, you'd have real full depth to the colors of the icing. And each piece, if I copy and paste this for example, will create a different depth on top of each one. And see how it creates that layer of icing on top. And then you'll have different shapes, and you can keep working with the same piece, or you can keep tracing out different pieces. But if you keep working with the same piece, just make sure when you resize it, you're going to tilt it a little bit and make it a little bit smaller each time, and that's how you'll start curving up to the actual icing. And it'll start curving itself up. Okay? And that's how you kind of get that depth to your icing as it comes together. So I hope that helps, and all the best.